Welcome everyone to the Foundation's quarterly meeting. As you may or may not know, this is an event that we hold every quarter, trying to give you an update on what's happening at the Foundation. Just a reminder that we have our annual face-to-face members meeting that we have in October in Ludwigsburg at EclipseCon Europe. It was a great meeting. It was a great meeting in this past October, and we will do it again this coming October. So just one of the things to mark on your calendar, one of the reasons to go to EclipseCon. So, but for the meeting today, we have a pretty full agenda. Mike is going to give us an update on what's happening from the executive director's point of view, and a few other topics, notably around the E4J top-level project. Ian Scarrett is going to give us an update on the activities around the IoT working group. And Wayne has some exciting project updates to give us, which we are all looking forward to understanding what the exciting project updates are. So this is a new stake in the ground Wayne has. And I'll give you a summary of what we're doing on our conferences and activities. If you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll ask them if they come in during the live recording, and we will check back over the next few days to see if there's any questions. So feel free to leave questions there as you review the recording, and we will get back to you directly with an answer. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and away we go.
Executive Director's update. I'm going to start off with the membership report. As of December 31st, we are at 270 members, including 10 strategic members and 1,456 committers. So I just want to say thank you all for your support and your participation in the Eclipse Foundation and its community. This is just showing the slow but steady growth that we've had over the last couple of years. So you can see how we've been making progress. And talking a little bit about some of the companies here. Influx Data, actually I'll leave those because they're on the next slide. SkyMind is joined with the Deep Learning for J project, which we're quite excited about. Deep Learning for J is the leading machine learning framework on top of the JVM. And so that's a great addition to the technology community at Eclipse. BTC is joining because they're part of the OpenPass or OpenMDM group, I believe. And Enalian is the company behind the Tulip ALM solution. And Calypso Networks is behind some very interesting technology that's used in transportation systems. So, for example, if you've ever taken the Paris Metro, you've been using technology from the Calypso Networks. So just on the working group side, Influx Data, AD-Link, and Orange all joined as part of the IoT working group. So great to have them on board. Orange actually did an announcement back at EclipseCon Europe about work that they're doing in the 1M2M space with Deutsche Telekom. And Astria just joined the Location Tech working group. So welcome to our geospatial community. Looking forward to early 2018. We're just in the month of January, but already have 2 new members. Glaway Soft is joined the Eclipse Foundation and the PolarSys working group as part of their interest in tooling for avionics software and in the aeronautics industry. And Tuv Sud, which is quite a famous certification entity in Europe and in Germany, joined the OpenPass working group because of their interest in the work that they're doing on simulation engines for advanced driving systems in automotive. Turning now to our 2018 board elections. They're with 10 strategic members. There will be 2 committer and 2 sustaining member reps, and they will be their term will be April 1st to March 31st. Nominations are currently open, and we do accept self-nominations. So if you're interested, please, by all means, nominate yourself or your colleague or friend and get them involved. I just want to really re-emphasize, I do this every single year, that these seats are very important to the governance of the Eclipse Foundation. And I think if you talk to anybody who has participated on the board of the Eclipse Foundation, they certainly found it very interesting to see the conversations that happen there. And the goal is by March 6th, we will be announcing the new board members, and they'll be joining the board in April. In terms of financial forecast, 2017 ended off in some ways even better than we had expected. So we haven't finished finished all the accounting, but it looks like we came in around 5.3 million in revenue, 5.5 in expense for a loss of $200,000, which is better than we had anticipated. The 2018 budget, which was just approved by the board of directors, we're looking at $6.5 million in revenue and $6.7 million in expenses, with a loss again of approximately the same ilk. So as you look back in the past years, we're pretty steady around there, and things are still looking very promising. On the EE4J status update. So just to quickly recap, if you saw me in Ludwigsburg, for example, some of these slides will be familiar. But it was announced back at Java 1 that Java EE is coming to the Eclipse Foundation, and by all means, please join the discussion at EE4J-community@eclipse.org. It's a very active mailing list with lots of very passionate people. So we're very happy to welcome this technology to Eclipse. This community is looking for a more open process, better models for collaboration between the community and vendors, and they are looking to the Eclipse Foundation to provide that. This year is going to be the year that all the technology moves over. It's also going to be the year where we are going to create a new process at the Eclipse Foundation for doing specs, similar to what the JCP has been doing in the past, as well as creating a new brand and name for what was formerly known as Java EE. So there's a lot of interest in getting this technology moved over to Eclipse as rapidly as we can do it. So where are we? So EE4J is the top level project that is going to be hosting this technology. And the focus at the moment is entirely on getting that established as a functioning open source project. So back in October, the board of directors approved the top level project charter. We had two existing projects, Eclipse Link and Yason, that have been at Eclipse Foundation for a while. We've moved those over to EE4J. There were 9 initial projects proposed. The final total is going to be somewhere between 35 to 40 new projects. So you can imagine that that's onboarding a lot of new technology and new source code, new committers. The first 9 projects have been created and provisioned. I think 2 of them have actually got source code into them now, and so we are onboarding these projects as rapidly as we can. In the background, there's been a bunch of legal work that's been going on to make all of this possible. So we put an agreement in place, for example, with Oracle to transfer ownership of the names of the projects like Glassfish, Jersey, and so on to the Eclipse Foundation. So that's been completed, and we're in the process of actually transferring the registrations of Glassfish around the world under the ownership of the Eclipse Foundation. While we're doing this, as at the same time, we have a community-led process to select a new brand to replace Java EE. So there's discussions going on about that today. The EE4J PMC has whittled it down to a short list of names based on input from the community, and we are going at this moment we are going through trademark review to see which of those names could be plausibly trademarked and around the world to be used as the new name. Next up is creating a working group. So for those who are new to Eclipse, working groups are the mechanism that we create member-led governance around a project community. And the goal is really to complement what's happening in the open source projects with additional activities related to marketing and branding, and so on. And in this particular case, there's going to be some special and additional work that's going to be done around creating specifications, creating this brand, enforcing the brand through a compatibility program. So this is going to be definitely a very important and I think quite prominent working group within the Eclipse community. So these are just some of the key principles and assumptions that we're using to drive the creation of the working group, and for that matter, the EE4J project community. So open source rules of engagement apply, as you would expect. Compatibility has been a key to the historical success of Java EE all along, which is roughly 20 years of success around Java EE technology. So that's why compatibility will continue to be important to this group, and that will drive a lot of the decisions and the processes that we're going to be making around the spec process, implementing test kits, and implementing reference implementations to ensure compatibility of independent implementations down the road. But really, a big part of the reason why this Java EE technology is coming to Eclipse is around innovation and increasing the pace of innovation, and sustainability and agility. So those are really sort of the three main goals that we need to execute on over the next couple of years. And so setting the working group up for success on those attributes is going to be a big part of what we have to do this year. So just try to talk a little bit about the relationship between the working group and the name up there, EE.next, may or may not be the name. That's why it's in quotes, and I'm doing little air quotes here as I'm talking. So in terms of the working group, what do they do? They're member driven. There's going to be a governance model, and around that governance model is going to be around creating a budget for the working group and possibly extra dues for the working group to make sure that they have funds which can be used to support their activities. They're going to have to define and adopt, and implement a spec process to replace the role that the JCP has had historically in doing Java EE specifications. Create an entirely new brand in the software industry, market that brand, raise awareness about that brand, and then use that brand in compliance and enforcement for the compatibility. And of course, as part of that, provide specs under a license that allows independent implementations. On the open source side, EE4J top level project is developer driven. So every project at Eclipse is a self-governing meritocracy, and they really, and that's definitely happening already with EE4J. They're going to be building the open source code in the TCKs. The license that's been selected for this group is the EPL version 2, with the secondary license being enabled with the GPL version 2 plus class path exception. So that's the license that's being used by this group. That's very similar to the historic license of Glassfish and the other related projects, which previously were CDDL and GPL plus class path exception. Open source rules of engagement apply, as we talked about, so meritocracy, et cetera, apply here. And the goal, again, really around agility, rapid innovation. We haven't done the spec process yet, but the sort of a priori assumption is that we will be creating specs largely using the open source processes that we use for everything else at Eclipse. And then with the idea that once a draft spec has been created by the project on the EE4J side, it will be referred to the working group for ratification and adoption. And so all of the processes that we're talking about here are governed by the Eclipse development process and the IP policy, just like every other open source project at Eclipse. So some key points and some of the things that, and the first one here is, I think, going to be one of the major cultural changes, if you will, relative to how Java EE has evolved in the past, which is that we're consciously trying to change the culture to be code first rather than spec first innovation. So the idea is that, let's get developers to build working code, and once they've demonstrated that it's working, then and only then do you work on a spec. So the three attributes of the spec process at the JCP has always been: you have a spec, you have a TCK, and you have a reference implementation. The going in assumption is that will continue to be the case. We've had numerous discussions about that with some key stakeholders in the Java EE ecosystem, and the consensus is that yes, they still want to continue with this. So compatibility still matters very, very much. But on the other hand, one of the major differences on the spec process is in the current JCP process, there's a notion of a spec lead who's a very powerful entity in the spec process, and actually ends up owning all of the IP that's involved with that spec. And that's not going to be the way we go with the new spec process. So this is about lighter weight processes for specs and defining profiles and the like. And really the goal of this group is to increase the pace of innovation and help bring what we used to call or used to think of as enterprise Java to a cloud native future. So this is definitely about the future, not just about the legacy. And with that, I will turn it over to Ian to bring us up to speed on the IoT working group.
Great, thank you, Mike. So what I want to do is kind of go through a survey that we did with the membership, and so last basically December, kind of just back in December, we actually went out and to all the members of the IoT working group to kind of understand kind of what they value out of the working group and what are the priorities they would like to see the working group take. So we have, I think it's 32 companies as members of the IoT working group. We had 21 respondents, and not kind of, it wasn't restricted to just one respondent per company. So I think there was some overlap, but it's like we're pleased with the respondent pool that we got. So we asked, and what's the importance of each benefit, and we gave them a list of benefits. And I think this is kind of indicative of kind of why we do working groups too, in many ways, right? Is that an important benefit is really the context, the networking. And within the IoT working group, what we really see is kind of the combination of companies from the OT, from the industrial side and enterprise side, IT side, is really kind of showing how you can bring these different companies together and collaborate. So that shows up. Kind of things like events kind of lead into that too, but kind of promotion of events and organizing events, kind of the whole aspect of kind of participation in open source is important for that. So I think some interesting things to take away from this, and also just kind of from a general strategy for doing the working groups is kind of good validation too. We also asked kind of what else we could do to make kind of working group participation more useful. And this is more of an open-ended question, but one of the big themes that we are seeing, and you'll see this kind of later on in the strategy section, is around integration. So the IoT working group has been in existence for over 5 years, and it's now a collection of 30 plus or minus 2 projects. And really where the members want to see is more integration between these projects. So it was important. We also asked us from a marketing and community outreach point of view who we should be targeting. We've traditionally been targeting IoT developers, and there's more and more emphasis on IoT architects. So we can take that to push forward. What are the priorities? And kind of netting out kind of an open-ended question, but better integration, as I pointed out previously, and more test beds. The idea of the test beds has been to showcase how commercial solutions and Eclipse IoT open source projects can work together to kind of solve an IoT application. So we have 2 test beds right now, one around production performance management of a factory floor and the equipment on a factory floor, and also another test bed around asset tracking. So they've been very, very popular. So kind of a priority on doing more of these test beds. Which should we stop doing? It's kind of, most people don't say we should stop doing anything, which is kind of interesting. But we asked the question. This is kind of some information that we got. So from that, what we use this as an input into a strategy document, and so each year for the past 4 years, we've actually put together what we call the IoT working group strategy for the year. And this is a collaborative effort where we get the working group approval for it, and we now have a steering committee, so they'll actually have the final approval for the document. But it's really kind of what are the technical priorities for the community for the year, and what are the community kind of marketing outreach priorities for the years, what we capture on this. And just kind of as a quick summary, I'm not going to go through the strategy document. It's available on the mailing list, for the IoT working group mailing list if you want to go and see it. But basically, there's 3 key priorities. One is to work on better integration with the IoT projects, and kind of the ultimate goal here is to be able to release some integrated stacks for use for the wider community. So you can almost start thinking about kind of the release train kind of for IoT. We also want to put more focus on recruiting new members. In previous years, this has also included kind of recruiting new projects, but I think there's going to be less emphasis on recruiting new projects and more on the integration and more on new members. And that leads me to the test beds, kind of more focus on the test beds and having new test beds come developed within the IoT working group. The test beds are actually a very good way of recruiting new members into the collaboration. The one thing that we want to do is have more end user organizations lead test beds, come with their applications that they want to solve, and you can almost think of these as a type of proof of concept for different types of industries. So those are the priorities of the working group. This is yet to be approved for the IoT working group. So the strategy document's still in discussion, but we should, by the end of the year, have it approved. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Ian.
Now we get
Yes.
And before we go, before we switch, this is going to be the last member meeting that Ian Scarrett is going to be on because he is leaving us at the end of the month. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank Ian for over 13 years of service to the Eclipse Foundation and the Eclipse community, and really it's been a great partnership working with you over those years, and all the best in wherever things take you next.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a great experience, and I will definitely miss it. So, but hopefully we'll keep in touch.
You're here.
And now over to Wade.
So I'll start off by stating that it was Stephanie's idea to include the word exciting.
Now you have to live up to it.
Yeah,
You didn't say no.
the impossible target. So I decided, of course, that I would start off with some exciting stats, because who doesn't like charts? One of my goals for for 2017 was to reduce the amount of time and energy that it takes for a project to come on board at the Eclipse Foundation. We define onboarding as the process of taking a project from the initial proposal state to having actual downloads that can be consumed by adopters. The numbers actually are fairly, they track fairly well ratio-wise anyway, if we extend that definition to include up to the project's first formal release, which is a little subtly different than their first downloads being available. Anyway, my target was a 25% improvement, and actually with Stephanie's help, who worked on this for most of 2017 with me, we managed to cut the time that it takes to bring a project on board at the Eclipse Foundation in half, which I'm pretty excited about.
That is exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
All right,
I know.
You're living up.
I know.
That is an exciting stat.
I also regularly keep track of project activity and just an idea of our landscape in terms of projects that are active. We have a massive other category. So this other category represents projects that represent 1% or less of the overall commits against Eclipse project repositories. And I think you'll find there's a couple of projects there that may surprise people. There's some very active projects that are not the IDE, right? Traditionally, people think of Eclipse as the IDE, and we are basically blowing the doors off of that perception in terms of project activity. The companies investing in Eclipse are also pretty interesting and pretty diverse in terms of the relative percentages. Again, I threw other in there as the companies that are 1% or less of the overall contributions to Eclipse projects. I thought I'd splash up a graphic of all of the organizations who have at least, these are member companies of the Eclipse Foundation who have contributed developers who have made a commit against an Eclipse repository in the last 3 months. We spent a lot of 2017 working on a new type of due diligence, so-called Type A, where we do license certification of third-party content use requests. Rather than the full due diligence process, which checks things in addition to license, like the provenance of the code and other various scans to make sure that the content there's no anomalies in it. Type A adoption has been very successful. A lot of projects are making use of that. I actually don't think I have a chart. I meant to add a chart. We actually have a process by which Type A requests can be automatically certified by a Genie process. And I think we're in the 50% range. About 50% of all requests for Type A content review are approved immediately after the PMC gives their approval. And I need to be careful here. Approval means something in particular in our process. What I mean is certification. Type A CQs, third-party content use requests, are certified. I'd like to talk briefly about the Eclipse Public License 2.0. Another big effort in 2017 that we wrapped up last quarter. The EPL 2.0 has been accepted by the OSI. Our documentation has been updated. Although I'm sure there's going to be little bits and pieces that we'll discover and fix as we go. We're pretty sure that all the big things have been done. The CBI, Common Build Infrastructure, has been updated. So if you are using that infrastructure, you can very easily update your metadata to specify an Eclipse Public License 2.0. Over the next few months, we'll start working with projects that use the EPL 1.0 to get them to update to the 2.0. So just keep in mind that that's coming. We want to reduce license proliferation and get all Eclipse projects that are using the EPL to standardize on the EPL 2.0. To just what are the major changes? I know that we talk about this every once in a while. I just thought it'd be worth bringing them up. Perhaps one of the the more well, there's a bunch of major changes. The one that I find personally interesting is the making it more suitable for scripting languages like JavaScript, and then of course the GPL 2.0 and higher compatibility option. This is something that a few projects have made use of. In particular, I guess the ones that jump to mind immediately are OMR and OpenJ9, which produce content that requires combining with the GPL plus ClassPath exception, and of course all of the new EE4J projects are all using EPL 2.0 with this secondary license again, a GPL with ClassPath. Just thought I'd splash up a list of some of the projects. This is actually as of 2 days ago, I believe, all of the projects that are currently using the EPL in some combination. This list will hopefully take several pages next time we report, and we'll start. Like I said, I'm starting this process where I'll start contacting projects about upgrading to this new license, new version of the license. Some resources for the EPL. This is all. There's links to all of this from either /legal, www.eclipse.org/legal, or if you go directly to the handbook. The handbook is my ongoing effort to put our open source project related documentation into one consolidated space. And again, that's continuing to evolve, and we evolve that as part of this effort as well. Some recent project proposals. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about any of these. They're all, frankly, there's all sorts of very cool stuff in this list, and any discussion of any of them could easily consume the rest of the time we have available. So I'll splash them up here. Of course, Mike mentioned the EE4J projects. This is the list of the EE4J projects. We have Ozark is added to this list too. So I think this should actually be 10.
Yeah.
Mike said 9. So Ozark is actually a 10th project. That's that new project proposal on top of the 9. The simultaneous release, we're actually looking at this point, this I'm actually hoping will change. We're looking at having the same number of projects in the Eclipse Photon release as we did in the Oxygen release. Added this year, though, we actually have 6 added. And if you're doing the math along with me, you'll realize that 6 were removed. I'll talk about them in a second. As with the new project proposals, all of these add very cool things. Discussion of any of them will take some time, but I think there's some really interesting stuff here, and I invite you to take a closer look at some of these projects and what they have to offer. Now, these are the projects that have dropped out. Now, we actually have the top 2. Target Management is moving some of their content into CDT, so that content will still be in the Photon release, just slightly reorganized. Orion has decided to not participate this year. The Subversive and eGarrett projects are not resourced well enough to participate, and their project teams are not capable of bringing them into the simultaneous release this year. This bothers me a little bit. I think Subversive dropping out is a big deal, and certainly eGarrett has a user community as well that will be affected by this. So consider this a plea. If you have resources and are interested or find value in these projects, please let me know, and we'd love to get some help bringing these into the simultaneous release. And I'm not sure about the status of Sphinx and the accessibility tools framework, but I will push on them. Unfortunately, our deadline to opt in has passed. It's not the end of the world. These projects can still be pulled into the simultaneous release, and they just require some process at this point to make that happen. And with that, I'm done, and I will pass it over to Paul.
That was all pretty exciting.
I know, right?
Thanks, Wayne. So one thing that we're excited about is a new program that we introduced late last quarter that we're calling the Member Funded Initiatives Program. This is something that we've been doing for a while, though not formally as a program. And it's basically responding to a request or requirement for one or more members to be able to provide some funding to have an initiative happen in the community and to have the foundation carry that out on their behalf. So the engagement process is fairly straightforward. You can contact us at membership@eclipse.org with an inquiry and a suggestion on an initiative that you would like to see happen. And we will work with you, and ultimately we'll enter into a relatively straightforward agreement that will see the foundation actually carry out this work on your behalf. More information is available on this topic at the link that's shown on the screen. or just do a search for member-funded initiatives on the website, and you can see all the details of the program. But we think this is a great new way for companies to engage with us and for us to help you achieve your business objectives. So we look forward to talking to you about it. Just a quick update on some of our conferences and the activities that we're into. So the next two conferences that the foundation is hosting and operating are the Phosphor-G North America and EclipseCon France. So to talk about Phosphor-G first, just as a quick reminder, the Phosphor-G conference is a geospatial conference. It's actually, we operate this on behalf of the OSGeo and jointly with Location Tech. And so this is a broad community event. It occurs in North America 2 out of every 3 years. There is also a world event, and when that occurs in North America, they don't hold the actual North American event. So that's the reason why we didn't do it last year. But we're back as hosts. We've been doing it since 2015, and we're really pleased to be doing it again. The call for papers is open now and is open until February 8th. So please check out the tracks that they're looking for talks, and it's very diverse and always turns out to be an interesting conference. There are also sponsorship opportunities still available, a few of them. Sales on the sponsorships have been going very well. So there's only a few spots left, but if you are interested, please reach out. The final note is that the Phosphor-G community tends to hold, and we are doing it again this year, a community day. And the community day is very diverse. There are some workshops, there are some talks, there are some code sprints. So it's really, it's quite fascinating. The event is being held in St. Louis at the Hilton at the Ballpark is the main conference, and then we are using the T-Rex Center in St. Louis for the community day. And I want to thank and do a shout out to the T-Rex Center for providing that facility to us for free. So that's pretty awesome of them to do. It's a very, very cool facility, and it's awesome that they're enabling us to leverage this. So lots more information on the website, but please get engaged. And if you haven't checked out what's happening in this geospatial community, it's pretty neat. There's a lot going on. So please drop by. The other event is EclipseCon France, which will happen this year on June 13, 14 in Toulouse. This is always a great chance for, especially our French community, but more widely, we attract lots of folks from across Europe. It's a very personable conference. The topics that are covered are wide-ranging, and I just find the networking events, opportunities that occur here are fantastic. Especially with the Unconference. The one thing about the Unconference, for those of you who have participated, air conditioning has been a real challenge for us. And so we have committed to and will find a new location which will have air conditioning. So that's a stake in the ground that we will not make that mistake again. We thought we had it solved last year, and turns out it was a problem. So, but please, by all means, check out the program. There's some new tracks that have been introduced. So find out more at the website. The call for papers is just about to open, and will be open, I think, through March, if I'm not mistaken of the dates. The two events that are occurring after that, or I guess the dates-wise, we just announced this, is that we will have an Eclipse IoT Day in Santa Clara as part of the IoT World. And so this is really exciting. IoT World is a very large event, happens during this entire week of May 14. And the IoT team, led by Ian, has been able to secure with these folks that we will have a dedicated Eclipse IoT Day at the start of the event. So the program will be dedicated to our Eclipse story, talking about it and trying to do outreach to other folks within the IoT world. So by all means, check this out. If you're interested in the IoT topic, the entire week is worth looking at, and being a part of this first day, this Eclipse IoT on the 14th would be well worth your while. The last event, it's never too early to start planning for our main event, which is EclipseCon Europe, which will be held on October 23 to 25 this year. It is held once again in Ludwigsburg at the Forum. We've been here now for, I think it's 11 or 12 years. And it's just a fantastic venue. We thank them. And in fact, we thank the city. We did announce that we did a 3-year deal with these folks, and they're much more, even more engaged with us in terms of reaching out to the local community. So thank you to the city of Ludwigsburg for that support that they have offered. This conference, if you're not familiar with it, has just a ton of things going on quite a wide variety of topics relating to things that cross our entire community. I mentioned at the start that we hold our members meeting there, which we invite you to participate. But between the unconference, some of the other meetups that occur, and just the conference itself, it is definitely the place that things happen for the Eclipse community. So I will also note that last year we sold out on sponsorship. And so if you are interested in sponsoring, by all means, reach out to our sponsorship team early. Because especially for our long-standing members, we appreciate the long-term support that you have offered to this conference, and we want to make sure that you get the space that you want. So by all means, if Perry is in the process of reaching out to those of you who did sponsor last year, if you haven't heard from her shortly, by all means, reach out to her directly and we'll make that happen. Just a quick note, a couple of the events that the foundation is attending and exhibiting at. We will be at DevNexus in Atlanta in February, and we'll also be at DevOps France in April, and there'll be other events that we will participate in. But just to make a quick note, if you're going to either of these 2 events, by all means, drop by. And I mentioned these. We actually have the events.eclipse.org site. It's a place where we use for centralizing all of the activities that are going on in and around the foundation. And we haven't highlighted this enough lately, but if you have an event that is related to the Eclipse community, by all means, reach out. For the working groups, if the working group is participating in an event, make sure it gets on this calendar, right? So we leave it to the community to actually reach out to us directly to make sure your event is listed here. So just a shout out to that. It's a simple email that gets sent. The link is on the events.eclipse.org page for you to provide the information. The other thing I want to mention here is that we continue to grow the virtual Eclipse community meetups. So these are the calendar is filled right through April now. Stephanie has some really cool talks. And so thank you to those who have already agreed to or done a talk. That it's terrific to have you engaged. If you have a topic that you're interested in reaching the Eclipse community and want to do a talk, just send a quick note to Stephanie and we'll make it happen. And more information is on the meetup.com site that you see on the screen. So please participate. We think this is an exciting new program that we have going. And with that, we will wrap up. Stephanie, were there any questions on the chat other than about the technical difficulties? Like, are you there?
No, not as far as I can see. So if anybody does have any questions, feel free to leave a comment on the YouTube channel or reach out to any one of us here at the Eclipse Foundation, whether that's Paul White, Mike Malinkovich, Ian Scarrett, or Wayne Beaton, or myself, Stephanie Snort. As always, we'd love to answer any questions you have.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your attention. And with that, we'll wrap up. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.